Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Closing Time with JD Diskin. My name is Ray Lodato, JD's co-host, and Jay, we're fresh off of our biggest July ever, which makes that 7 for 7. We've had the biggest month in company history every month in 2017. You got to be feeling pretty good.
You're welcome, Ray, and every one of our listeners, you're welcome.
All right, well, thanks. Humble as always, JD laying it down. All right, now we have a very special guest on this episode. PA RVP of Marketing, Bradley Vierling. Bradley, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Raylo, Destroyer.
We're going to try something a little different this week. There's a podcast out there that NPR does that I like a lot. It's called How I Built This. They interview different businessmen and how they came up with the idea, how they wrote the business model, how they met their partners and took that small business into a large, thriving one. And I think here at Power, in terms of your personal brand and your career, there's a lot of parallels. So I wanted to bring Bradley in and get to know a little bit more about his career arc, his story, and what he was able to do to go from rookie to sales rep to RVP so quickly. So Bradley, before you came to Power, what was your life like?
Interesting question. A little bit different path, I think, than a lot of people before they come in. So I've had two professional jobs after college. One was playing in the NFL, and the other is working here at Power.
Yeah.
So I
Me
went
too.
to Okay. Well, it looks like it. I played in the NFL for 2 years. I was an undrafted, signed free agent by the Steelers. I was with them for about 6 months. I got cut. Then I was at the Carolina Panthers for 3 days. I got cut, and then I got signed before the last preseason game of the Jaguars preseason. I started the second half of the last preseason game against the Falcons, ended up making the squad, and then hung on for 2 years in the NFL. Ended up busting my neck pretty bad at the end of my second year, and then, lost is probably a specific kind of word I could use in that situation. Not really knowing what to do next is probably the right way to phrase it, but I think most people get to that point, whether it's, after their first job they had out of college or right after college, where they don't really understand, like, what am I going to do next? And I was at a crossroads in my life. It's like, do I want to define myself as someone who puts on the shoulder pads and helmet, and that's like who I am for the rest of my life? Or do I want to be able to see what else can I do? Do I have the ability to be excellent somewhere else besides just like, my talents as a football player? So 6 months later, I stumbled upon Power's logo on LinkedIn. Back then we didn't have the number one company to work for and all those different accolades that we've won so far over the past couple years. So November 12th, 2012 was my first start date at Power. And when I came in, I got interviewed and hired as a remodeling consultant. But my training class didn't start until midway point of December after Mexico. So I came in and I actually started in the contact center. I started inside sales. And Chris Jordan was the first guy that ever trained me. And I wasn't a referral, which is also very different, I think, than most people, how they start their careers at Power. So I didn't know a soul when I came in here. Started inside sales, did it for about 2 months. I wasn't sure about this place, man. It was like, it sounded like it was too good to be true. The reason why I chose Power is because of these weird vibes and feelings that I had about this place, that the people seem really cool and they seem like they care about the people that are here and the management's good. But at the end of the day, I was like, do I want to sell windows? And how is everybody really this happy? And is it true that everybody makes money? And what's the catch, kind of an idea? And I think a lot of people come in with that same kind of thoughts and feelings. And when I came in, I knew after about 2 weeks I wasn't going to work anywhere else for the rest of my life. And the reason why was because I saw how much they cared. Like, I really, truly felt that they actually cared about me as a person. And if they were going to do that, then I was going to give them everything that I had, because that's what I've done previously in my life. And I knew that it worked out. When I was around people that cared about me and had my best interest at hands, when I gave 100% of myself to those situations, it always ended up working out in a positive way.
Do you remember what your mindset was early on in your career here? Like, how you approached the job?
Well, one part of my mindset, what the hell is going on around here? Like, we're going to Mexico. Okay. I've been here my first day, and someone's like, yo, you coming to Mexico? And I'm like,
Was that the Snoop Dogg year?
That was it was the year before Snoop Dogg.
Okay, all right.
All right, I was a Ibero star.
A little more tame.
My mindset first when I came in was I was trying to figure myself out a little bit, figure myself.
I suppose after you figured out that you wanted to be
was it.
here because the people cared about you, how did you approach it?
I didn't want to disappoint anyone. That's been my mindset. It's still my mindset today. I want responsibility. I want to be great at what I do, and I'm not afraid to work hard to achieve that. And I didn't want to be someone that people looked at that said, this person has potential, but they didn't achieve it. I just don't like disappointing people. I guess that means I care a lot about people's opinions that are around me if they care about me. If they're the right kinds of people, I want to impress them. I want them to know that I care the same way that you care. And if I'm not doing well, I want you to tell me. Like, I want to be great.
So speaking of that, was there something specific that you struggled with during your career here early on?
Oh, yeah. And JD probably remembers this too. When I first became a remodel consultant, my first month I was pretty good. I closed almost 60%. I ended up selling over $145,000 my first month.
That's a pretty good first month.
If Jay probably remembers, which I'm sure he does, I had a big time cancellation problem. I was really, really good at selling people. I was not very good at consulting them. I remember getting really upset, and I remember, even contemplating like, is this the right place for me then? I'm doing my job. They're telling me I'm supposed to close, and then, what I did is, I think one of the things that was good that I did is I just started to ask questions, because I had all these like weird thoughts and feelings flowing through my brain of like, is it me? Is it them? Like, is it the company? Are they screwing me over? Is it these homeowners? Like, I had no idea. I'd never had a sales job before. You know what I mean? So I didn't understand of all the things that are in my control. And I went to JD, I spoke to Eric, and I started asking questions. And after a very, very short conversation, I realized rather quickly that I was in control of this whole situation. So I had a big time struggle when I first started, man. And it was to the point where I thought that I was making money and I should be making money. And it was something that happened where I realized that it's not out of my control. This game is not about luck. It is truly 100% in our control.
What did you do to overcome it, right? You say it's in your control. How did you control the situation to get past that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to have some cliche answers when it comes to that stuff. Getting back in your book, sitting in initial training, that's what I did. That's what I was forced to do, is really understand the psychology behind what we do and why we do it. Why do we say the words that we say? Why do we button up our appointments? Why do we go through a timeline after you sell? Why is the cancellation script the way that it is after you get somebody to say yes initially? And just doing the basics, man. Like, that is something like, if you have a rock solid foundation, then you'll be able to build on top of it. And I had some cracks in my foundation. I had to fill them up, and that's what JD and Eric and some of my mentors at the time, Kyle Hillman and Barry Van Doren, like, those are the guys that put me underneath their wing and said, this is what you need to do, and these are the reasons why. And I just did it. And it's not even blind faith at that point. It's like, it's a history of over 20 years of, we know what works and we're just trying to help you. So I just listened.
With new sales reps, they build such a great relationship with the homeowner. And the homeowner is really having a good time. They understand what we're going to do, and they need to get the work done. And so it's hard for a rep to realize that it's even in those situations that you have to address the cancellations really hard, right? But when you're in that moment, you're like, no, JD doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, these people,
right? I'm here right now. Right, I know this is good.
And they need it. Like, they love me. Like, they're not going to cancel. Like, it's not that scenario. But they don't realize that it's those scenarios that's when you have to address it, just like in every other situation. It's like, not when the people are like, I think we should say yes, but I'm most likely going to cancel. That's not when you address it. That job's going to cancel every time. It's the ones that they're telling you, yeah, we're going to do it. We love it. Let's do it. That's when you have to address it as well.
So B, when you go back to the basics, right?
Yeah.
And you do all the things that you're told will work, and they end up turning that cancellation problem around. I imagine that's got to build trust on your end.
At that point in time, I'm like, all right, I tried it my way, right? Let me try it yours, and their way works. For me, that was one of the major turning points in my career at Power, that not only did I realize that they knew what they were doing, they had the right answers, they had the answers that were in my best interest. So like, the better that I was at listening to them and implementing what they told me, I mean, the more sales I had, like, the more money I was making, the happier I was. Living is just in a different way, having financial freedom. And it was all from just listening to the people that were really trying to help me the most. That's some of the hardest things to do, I think, frankly, is just being able to submit almost and say, all right, I'm yours. I'll do whatever you tell me to do, and I'll give it 100%. And I think when I made that conscious decision is when my career really started to take off.
How important was it to you to earn the respect of those that you worked with? And how did you go about earning it?
On the front end, coming in with a pedigree of having like an NFL stamp on you and going to Vanderbilt, people talk about potential with you all the time. Potential is a word that actually can become a negative down the road. Because if someone is always talking to you about potential, it means that you've never really reached something specific. So I wanted to prove to them that I wasn't just potential. I'm the real deal. Like, I want to show you guys that I'm not just smoke and mirrors. Yes, I could have played in the NFL and this, that, and the other, but like, I'm a person, I'm a human being, and I want you to understand what kind of a person, human being I am. That I can focus on something and actually become excellent at it and give 100% of myself to something and show you guys that I have a certain skill set, and it doesn't have to do with talent, it has to do with work ethic.
When you were in that period of time of your life, after the NFL, before you came to Power, what was your worst professional fear?
That I was dumb.
Why is that?
A lot of people talk about athletes as if, they're just athletes. Whether you went to Vanderbilt, it doesn't matter, I even went through things in my college career where people discriminated against us because we were athletes, you know what I mean? So, going to a highly intelligent university and being the athlete there, and you got in because of your sports background, you start to ask yourself certain questions, and then you get into a professional setting, like, am I actually smart enough to be here? Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Because I can run and I could block and I can understand a playbook, but I didn't really understand what all that stuff really meant. You know what I mean? Like the actual psychology behind the way that I was made and built. So I was nervous, man. I didn't know, dude. I've been playing football my whole life. You go to school and you get good grades and all that stuff, but everybody already knows school can only teach you so much. The real world is where you learn everything, and going into the NFL was a very specific, learning experience. But even that didn't really prepare me to understand and know if I was a smart person in a business setting. So I was nervous about it, I had no idea what to expect.
I started off here, Power, in TA. This was back in 2010, right? Years ago, I had an interview, and I still remember what this candidate said to me. He said, action cures fear. If your fear coming into Power was that you didn't have what it took upstairs to get it done, what action did you take to cure that fear or to beat that fear?
Well, I tried to be better than everybody else. That was it. If I was a better sales rep, close rate, dollar per issue, average sale price, gross to net, right? If I could hang my hat on my stats and I had the exact same opportunities as everybody else, the appointments are created the same, they're issued the same, right? The nitro logic is the same, we all have the same exact window pitch, every detail of this job is exactly the same. So I'm okay, so whoever has the best stats, that means that they're able to be excellent at it. So I'm all right, if I really want to see if I can do this, how great, versus the people that are the best at the job, where do I stack up? Because if I'm on top of others, it's not from a place of arrogance, it's from a place of I was proving to myself that I actually could be smart in the business and professional atmosphere. So to me it was all right, who are the best people that are out there? What's the most amount of volume someone's ever done in their first year? I want to know the details and I want to try to attack it. That's that was my goal.
Mamba mentality.
Mamba mentality, you got it. I remember asking Lonaball, he popped into initial training when JD was stepping out for a second, and I was what's the most volume anyone's ever done in their first year? And he's I really like that question. I was I want to know those things, man. I don't want to compare myself to people that are just okay, because then I'm just going to be a little bit better than the people that are just okay. So
from the day you walked in the door.
Oh, yeah, it sounded like Donkey Kong, bro.
Your measure for yourself
was number one.
Who's the best, and
That's
how
it.
do I beat them?
That's it.
So anybody that knows you knows that you bring a lot of energy. A lot of energy.
I do my best,
In training, in the office. How did that play into your success?
I mean, what's the alternative? The alternative is half-assing it.
Right.
If you're going to do something, why are you going to half-ass it? I just don't understand the theory. You have to be there. You're going to spend the time doing it anyway. Why are you not trying to get the most out of it? Now, that's very easy to say. The reason why it's easy is because I'm passionate about certain things. I'm passionate about working at Power. I was passionate about proving myself when I came in. If you're not passionate about something, of course you're going to half-ass it. It doesn't take talent to give effort. And that is something that if I knew that I cared about it, that I was going to do everything I could to give it everything I had. And those are those are some cliche things you're going to hear from people. Those are some of the easiest answers to give. They're the hardest things to actually do. But when you find something you're actually passionate about and you half-ass it, then what you're really saying is, I'm actually lying to myself. I really don't care that much about it. And that's why I'm not giving all of my energy towards it. So whether it's walking through the office or having a conversation, or frankly, just your being, what is your happiness level? I work at Power, dog. I'm happy. It doesn't mean that things aren't stressful at times, but at the end of the day, I know I'm surrounded by the greatest people in the entire country. So why not give it everything? Why not bring all the energy that you have? Categorize what you really care about, and when you figure it out, give it everything you have. And I just knew I love the people that worked here.
So moving right along, Bradley, if someone shadowed you on an appointment, what do you think their takeaway was from watching?
So JD and I have had a lot of these kinds of conversations when I was a sales rep. I started being shadowed after my first couple weeks out of initial training. He used to pair me up with guys all the time. They would come and watch me. So one, being on stage is something that's it's great. I loved it. I knew as well, as this person's going to be giving feedback, right, to either A, my RVP, or B, the chief sales officer, right, whoever was training me and mentoring me at the time. I wanted to be able to have a report that was being delivered about me that was positive. I've never, ever, ever claimed to be very good at overcoming objections. So in our sales process, I would break it down, maybe 85% to 15%. The 85% of the appointment is before you even lay off price. What I wanted people to know that I did the job literally exactly the way I was taught how to do it, but nobody was going to do it better than me in that 85%. So when I showed a homeowner how much a job cost, I was just telling them how much the job cost. I wasn't having to make a sale anymore. So like the other 15%, there's going to be some things you're going to need to do sometimes to overcome an objection or handle some different kinds of things when it comes to either the financing amount or whatever it is, right? There's different details that happen to earn someone's business after you lay off price, but you don't really have the ability to do those things the right way to close at a high rate if you're not giving literally everything you have on that first 85% of the appointment. Those are percentages I've made up. I don't know what JD would say. It might be 90-10, it might be 95-5%, but at the end of the day, people that think that the job starts after they lay off price, they really have the wrong mindset. When someone was giving feedback of how I performed, I wanted them to know that I really cared about the people that I was with. I did an amazing job of trying to build rapport, and I did the job the best way that I could, and it was exactly the way I was taught.
You went through your struggles as a sales rep, but kind of had that mama mentality, right? Rose to the top of the heap and quickly proved yourself as a leader within that department, right? The moment you were told that you were selected to be the RVP of marketing for Pennsylvania, take us through that.
I would say
how did it play out?
That process took a long time. Being a sales rep, did $1 million my first 8.5 months, became a sales mentor around like 9 or 10. My first full quarter as a mentor, I finished number 3 in all of the mentor teams that are out there. I had a great team around me that they helped me be good at my job. I mean, I had no idea a lot of the things that I was doing and understanding why and how, and a lot of help from JD and Lonaball and a lot of the mentors that were in PA. And I remember having a conversation with Corey and Asher just about what the future looks like. But I actually reached out to them first. I shot them an email, I described, where I was at in my career and the questions that I had. And I'd always been a guy that wanted responsibility of other people. I was a 2-time captain when I was in college. So being at Power, I got to a point, I think, in the sales job where I felt comfortable that I knew how to do it and do it well, right? I loved being a mentor. And I tried to give it everything I had, and I was successful because of other people that I was surrounded by doing that position. But I reached out to them. I wanted to know, like, what do you guys see? You know what I mean? Like, can I sit down and eat dinner with you? It's like, I really wanted them to know that I wanted more, and these are after conversations I had with Lonaball and JD, and then, eventually going to those guys. But that process was months and months and months. And also, like, going through RVP boot camp, it was a 6-month process for me, and it involved being a marketing rep and knocking on doors and doing the marketing position, field marketing, retail marketing, event marketing, taking over a department that had 85 people at the time.
Did you question yourself in that time period?
No, man.
No?
Because I had the people, they had faith in me, and if they thought that I could do it, then they're not dumb. Like, they've been doing this thing for a long time. If they see that I have the potential to do it and do it very well, then I'm going to continue to ask a lot of questions and just try and do it the best way that I think that I know how to do it. But I wasn't flying blind. But that was a 6-month process, man. And it wasn't like I just sat down with Corey Asher one day and they're like, okay, great, you're the RVP of PA.
Congratulations.
That's not how things work around here.
Yeah.
It's that there's an opportunity that's discussed, and what you do with that discussion, when they describe an opportunity, you either take it and own it, and you already do the job before you ever get the title, or you don't. It's like nothing around here is ever given. Any RVP that's ever been promoted, it's because it's been earned. The same thing goes with directors and mentors and so on and so forth down the line.
B, what was the biggest change that you had to make to go from being a great sales rep to a great RVP?
Realizing even more that you have no idea what you're doing. The sooner
that's perfect for Ray Ladonna.
You're waiting on that, right? Yeah. The sooner that you realize that you don't have all the answers is the best place to be, right? So being able to ask people questions and gather information from people that have been doing it before you and that have already made the mistakes and have already learned from those mistakes. Understand that I had went from being someone that was knowledgeable of how to be a good sales rep, knowledgeable of how to be a good mentor, and then understanding that this is a completely different ballgame, and knowing that I was a rookie and keeping that rookie mentality. That was one of the biggest changes. When you start closing 40, 45, 50% and having a dollar per issue of $4,000, $5,000, like you're doing the job, you're doing it very, very well, and you're starting to gain the expertise of how to be an excellent sales rep.
And it's easy to think that you know it all.
It is
when you have that
very
kind of
easy.
success.
You're like, dude, I got a $4,500 per issue. I know what I'm doing, right? Like that's very easy because there's statistics that you can just look at and say, okay, I'm doing the job and I'm doing it very well because this is my stat line, right? When you're an RVP, yes, there are statistics that you can look at, but being able to be around and manage and help mentor dozens and dozens of human beings, like that is a completely different ballgame, you know? And I think understanding the responsibility that I have of really truly working for my people and having servant leadership, realizing that sooner rather than later, and being able to ask a lot of questions and being able to say, I don't have all of the answers, but what I can tell you is I'm willing to go and seek what those things are. You know, I want to figure out how to be great when it comes to being an RVP, which is the same kind of process I went through to become a sales mentor and so on and so forth.
What do you think makes you a good leader?
I care, man. I care so much. And I care about people's lives. You know, I know that when I offer someone the job, what I'm really saying to them is I'm willing to love you. Like I'm willing to do whatever I can to ensure your success. And that means there's going to be hard conversations, and that means that, there's going to be accountability, but it's because I actually love you and you don't even know who I am yet. I care, which means I care in every single conversation. It means I care in every single meeting. And to me, that's my number one, and that's one of the 5 characteristics of being a power person. That's part of the DNA is caring, For me, that's my number one. I care so much that it allows me to, work the hours and have the conversations and try to continue to learn and read the books that we have and continue to ask questions. Like I care, man. Like I care so much about the people, but I love this place so much because of how it's helped me. And all I want to do is pay that forward, which means I have to care.
So wrapping this up, Corey and Asher often talk about someone's personal brand here at Power, as in what people think about when they hear your name.
Sure.
What do you think your personal brand is?
When it comes to your brand, if you're going to sit there and only give a bunch of positives, you're wrong. I know sometimes I can be too quick to judge. I know that I can be a loud, abrasive person sometimes when I don't mean to. I know that my presence can sometimes overtake someone else's, and I don't mean to do that. I know that, there's all of these things. I think, part of my brand is understanding kind of who you are, and sometimes you think you have the answer and you don't. There's all the good things about my brand that I could discuss too, but at the end of the day, if you're just here to get pats on the back, you're never going to continue to grow. So constantly asking questions, and also too, man, like just being at headquarters, your brand is just put into your face all the time, and you can't be afraid of those things. So, part of my brand is also being very energetic and all those kinds of things. But, I know that I'm still a rookie in so many kinds of ways. I'm still an amateur in so many kinds of ways. And I know that's also a part of my brand. So I don't know. I mean, I could give you this long, great, polished, all this stuff answer, but at the end of the day, there's all of these things to work on.
Yeah.
And part of my brand is I'm not afraid to hear those things, and I actually want to hear them. And when I hear them, I'm going to attack them just the same way I've tried to do everything else in my life to have my brand be as great as it can be. But nobody's perfect, dog.
We'll wrap it up on that note. This has been Bradley Vierling, How I Built This. And just want to give a special thanks to Bradley and also to JD for really bringing it today.
Yeah, Jay, you did
Jay,
great, bro.
For
you
all
were on fire,
all
Jay.
the prep
you crushed
work and
it,
the questions.
kid.
You really...
Chris, is my mic on?
All right, well, that has been closing time for JD Diskin and Bradley Vierling. I am Ray Lodato. And until next time, ABC. Always be closing.
Closing time. This room won't be open. Tell your brothers or your sisters.